Hey, it's Adam Grant. I'm here with
Tim Urban,
also known as Wait But Why. Today we're going to talk about the Myers-Briggs personality test, which some of you love, others hate, and I broke up with a couple years ago. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons, and should psychologists ever do personality testing again? And we're standing here in the middle of Central Park, where we have the camera attached to a tree branch that looks remarkably fragile.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna just show you.
Do you have a shot?
Yeah, this is what we've done. We put the thing onto this little branch here, and we're gonna try it. So, because we both, I think, thought the other one had like a room, and then we, yeah.
Now, the next question is, are we in the shot?
Right, and it's. Oh,
There we are.
Okay, cool.
That's a good sign.
Okay.
All right.
So now,
That's us.
yeah,
It could be us. Here we are.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And if you guys, if we're doing this badly because we're really remarkably incompetent, the two of us, then just
Especially
comment.
me.
And I'm looking at the comments, and we are gonna actually notice the comments this time as we do it. So just tell us if there's something wrong with the feed or you can't hear us or something.
Although I know some of you really enjoyed the conversation between me and Tim's hands last time.
Yeah.
So we could reproduce that if you
Yeah,
want.
or me and then a sliver of Adam's face the other time, embarrassingly incompetent. Okay, so so Myers-Briggs.
Yeah. So I got your email. You did this mailbag thing where you answered all these
Right.
reader questions, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I got to this part where
Yeah, so-
you said you took the Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, so I did this mailbag. I talked about Myers-Briggs. I'm all excited about all of this, and then Adam emails me and says, "Loved your mailbag until the sickening moment when you took the MBTI," and then he linked to a post he had done on Medium, just tearing apart Myers-Briggs, which I then read, and now I don't know what to believe anymore about anything. And so you're going to help me understand this because you know this. This is like actually the perfect person to talk to about this.
That's an open question, but I want to hear, how
Yeah.
did you become aware of the test? What is the test as
Okay,
an
so-
outsider?
Right. So as an outsider, Myers-Briggs is really famous. It's probably like the most talked about for the layman, like personality test. It's like, it's very layman friendly, and which might be part of the problem. And what's so nice about it is it's super simplified, and you can take these tests online in 10 minutes, and there your whole thing is right there. You get the 4-letter code, you get the description of all the things about you, and then you can compare it to all your friends, and you can it all makes sense in your head because you can say, yeah, I guess you are a little more like that, totally, and that is you, and you can quickly make it seem like it makes perfect sense. And so, question is, why was it sickening that I took it and was like buying into it?
Well, I mean, sickening might have been a strong word. I threw up a couple times, but I'm over it now.
Yeah.
And I found it a little bit sickening because it's like if you were a doctor and you went and said, in the 1920s, there was this thing called bloodletting, where they thought they could make you healthier by just removing all the blood from your body.
Right.
And then in the 50s, they tried to fix your brain by giving you a lobotomy. And we're just gonna stick with those old ideas instead of real science. And that's maybe a little bit harsh, but that's how some experts in the social science community feel of the Myers-Briggs has evolved.
And so one of the things that people, I think Myers-Briggs gets a lot of credit from the layman because huge organizations use it, and they claim that all these we're using it, and it's the way we hire people, and so people say, well, the Myers-Briggs people say, yeah, it obviously has a lot of validity given all the people that are using it. But what you said, you made the point that acceptance by non-experts isn't a marker of validity; it's a sign of popularity, which I think is really interesting. And I think that people who would have disdain for horoscopes and know that the horoscopes are written because everyone, it's like a psychic when they're like, you're going through some hard things and there's that thing you want, that thing you're dreaming of in life, and but you've been really having a hopeful moment recently. Everyone, that works for every single person all the time. That comment, let's just tear this leaf. Sorry, leaf.
They've seen better days.
That comment, though, literally it fits for everyone, which is why it's such a cheap trick. And so I think the people who agree with that about horoscopes, they don't realize that Myers-Briggs might be closer to that than they than they think.
I think that's true. So a couple months ago, I sat down with the founder of a company. He's been wildly successful. He's a billionaire. The company does really well. And he uses the Myers-Briggs as part of his hiring process. And the CPP, actually, the publisher of the Myers-Briggs, is very adamant about saying this is not something that should ever be used for hiring. He does it anyway. And I asked him why. And he said, I gave this to my executives, and they all said, this describes me. And we've known about this for years. It's called the Forer effect. It's also known as the Barnum effect, where you give people a vague enough description of something that might be kind of like them, and they'll pick out the parts that seem to capture them.
This is what psychics do, fortune tellers. This is
It's like John Edward on South Park. It's like, I bet you've lost someone recently,
Right.
Tim, right?
Right.
Haven't you?
Yeah. And
What was that person's name?
yeah.
Yeah, and then like I'll build on that, right? So
Right.
it's not, it doesn't mean anything that people think it describes them, because I can construct a totally bogus test that you will feel describes you quite well.
I was an INTP, and then I took it another time and I was an ENTP, like closer to an S, and then one other time. And each time I read the things and I was like, well, yeah, I guess that is me. You know, and by the way, you especially one of the, you criticized two parts of the Myers-Briggs in particular in your article. One was extroversion versus introversion. You think that the Myers-Briggs tests do not do a good job of actually understanding what those two words even mean. So what's the problem?
Well, I mean, if you look at how the Myers-Briggs was created, right? You have Carl Jung, sort of making ideas up, really doing armchair philosophy. And instead, like, you could say, well, if we're going to do science, right, we should go out into the world and discover the major categories of personality. But instead, he makes up three, and then we have...
Which one did he not make up?
That is an excellent question. So he did extroversion, introversion. He had... there's one that that Isabel added.
There's thinking and feeling.
Thinking and feeling.
There's the intuition
Sensing,
versus
intuiting.
right, and then there's
Judging, perceiving.
Right.
They added one of them. We'll have to look
Okay.
up which one it was.
Right.
Piece of history. And anyway, he came up with these categories, right? And introversion, extroversion was a huge contribution, right? This is a major dimension of personality. It amplifies like every other aspect of your personality, where extroverts tend to be more expressive, and it's easier to recognize everything else about them. But so
I think the layman thinks. I thought this till pretty recently. The extra oversimplified version of those two words, where extroversion means you're outgoing and you're like, social, and introversion means you're shy and you don't like going, you're antisocial. And that's such an oversimplification. It's not even correct. It's not even getting to what the words mean.
No, so psychologists have spent the past half century really starting with Hans Eysenck, trying to understand like what differentiates extroverts and introverts. And even using physiological and MRI data to try to look at like what are the bodies and the brains of extroverts do differently from introverts. And the first finding was there's no such thing as a type. Right, all personality traits are on a continuum. They're normally distributed like a bell curve.
Right.
Most people are in the middle.
Not just that. What I noticed is, so I got like for extroversion, I got a 55% or something like that, like really close to the line, which means I have more in common with an I that gets a 55% I than I am with an extra, like a super extrovert. And it's not taken into account either. It's this binary.
It depends which version of the test you take, right? Like the more sophisticated ones will tell you have a dominant function and an auxiliary function, and if you're in the middle, you should really think about the fact that you're both a lot of the time. And Jung knew this, right? He wrote about how like a person who is always an introvert or an extrovert would be insane. But I think that the popular definition that the Myers-Briggs took on was it's about where you get your energy, right? So extroverts are energized by other people and social interaction, and introverts are more energized by being alone and thinking. And we thought that was true for a long time until this psychologist, Will Fleeson, comes along, and he actually goes, and this is like a beeper pager study before there was a lot of text messaging. So he pages people at random moments across different days, 2 weeks, and he asks them, how happy are you right now? And then, what are you doing? And they've also, before the study starts, they've taken an introvert, extrovert survey. They know where they fall on the continuum. It turns out that everyone is more energized when acting like an extrovert.
Right.
So like right now, even though you and I both claim to be somewhat slightly more on the introverted side of the spectrum, we're going to be more energized than when we're alone. So it's not true that extroverts get their energy from other people and introverts don't. Everyone is energized by outgoing interactions.
But the difference is that, from your article, what I understood is that introverts get the overstimulation, the stimulation eventually more quickly for them than it does for extroverts starts to kind of exhaust them.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
That's thought to be one part of it, although there's a lot of debate about whether the support for that theory is enough to say that that's what's going on. But yeah, introverts get overloaded more easily than extroverts. The same bright light or loud sound actually looks brighter and sounds louder to an introvert.
It's almost like they're more sensitive a little bit, like, so they have like a more sensitive receptor of this energy or something.
That's the thinking. And then there's also a reward sensitivity component.
Yeah.
Where so extroverts literally have more hyperactive reward centers in their brain. So they tend to, for example, be more influenced by, if you were to dangle a cash bonus in front of an introvert or an extrovert, the extrovert would get more excited by that than the introvert would.
Okay, so here's what I struggle with this. Because I'd like to know, for my own identity's sake, if I'm an extrovert or an introvert, because I need to like figure out who do I identify with, and which, you know, it's very disconcerting not knowing which one you are. So, yeah, sorry, we have a thing here. We're at 10% battery. Everything about this is not professional, but we're gonna make it work.
Keep it going.
So here's the thing. So when I'm with good friends, like I would say, when I'm with like the 20 people closest to me, or even new people that I really click with, I could not be more energized by interaction, and it never gets old. I get more energized. I'll go for 3 hours. I'll go for 5 hours talking to a dinner of 4 people that I really like. I can do that forever. It's the best activity. I never want it to stop, right? So, sounds super extroverted. And if I'm at a cocktail party with a bunch of strangers, unless I really am in the right zone, and usually after 20 or 30 minutes, I'm like, I need to like go to the bathroom to like read in the stall, like read an article on my phone, or play a game, or just relax for a minute, because like, and then I feel like such an introvert. So what is the, and you know, and I love going home to my inner world. So that's introvert. Is it if you're energized by your best friends, and then you're drained by strangers?
I can't explain.
Okay, so you don't know.
Sorry.
Okay.
No. I think there are 2 explanations. One is that you're a shy extrovert. So you're drawn to seeking out stimulation.
Right.
But you're uncomfortable around new people. And this is actually related to the post you wrote about the authentic voice and the mammoth, where you're constantly worrying what other people think about you. That's normally driven by shyness, or that's part of a symptom of shyness at least. And so like you go into these interactions and you're like, well, if I know these people already, I don't have to feel like I'm on stage and I'm being judged. And so that's
it's more of an effort with like new people. It's like, you know, you have to like make sure that the interaction, you know, is like a certain thing as opposed to just being yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Which
like
makes
that.
sense. Right. Yeah. This is very, except for the 10% thing, which is stressing me out.
Yeah, we'll get over that. I'll try to find the power bank in a minute.
And by the way, if we just cut off suddenly, that's because the phone ran out. So, okay. So
there's another possible explanation, which is you could be a sociable introvert. So that's what I think I am. I really like people. I enjoy human interaction.
You're a professor. It's like your favorite thing is being a professor. You know, and like working with all these people. That's like your job is to be interacting.
Yeah, except if you look at the number of like hours a week that I'm in the classroom or speaking on a stage compared to the number of hours I'm reading and writing and analyzing data, like I spend much more of my time in my introvert comfort zone. But I think that as a sociable introvert, you really enjoy interactions that are smooth and meaningful, which are easier to have with people that you know well. And with strangers, it's
outgoing introvert. You know, you can be socially capable,
gregarious,
but it's not right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so by the way, a commenter,
socially skilled. Yes.
A commenter has said that the perceiving versus judging is the added one.
Thank you.
So there we go.
Success.
I am take this for myself for a second. Okay, so let me just tell you some other things Adam said while Adam's getting his power cord.
Let's see if this works.
One of them is that he refers to a concept of me-search versus research. And a lot of times what we call research, he believes is actually based on your own personal experiences, which are inherently very limited, very biased, and that he talks about how to have a correct research, you need to tell me the exact wording, you know, a long series of randomized, you need to, a series of randomized
controlled trials.
Yeah, okay, what does that mean?
Oh, I mean, ideally what we do is we do like a bunch of experiments that are double blind where we track people's behavior and we have no idea who's in what condition, and then we start to look at effects. Okay. So, and you believe that there's something called the Big Five, which is a different kind of personality test, which you believe has gone through the psychological, the rigorous scientific, has crossed that hurdle and actually is
worthy of something more than, you know, being a horoscope?
I think it's better. So I'll switch over as Tim tries to get us to power. You can unplug that and add that instead, and we should be good, I think. So the Big Five basically started with a bunch of psychologists going to different countries and asking people to rate other people they knew on all the adjectives in their language that could describe a human being. So,
Okay.
Are we charging?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Let's hope.
Fingers crossed. So imagine, like, we're going to do this in English. There are about 18,000 or more adjectives that could be used to describe a person.
Right.
You're going to rate me on all 18,000 of those. So don't ever be in one of these studies. But then we're going to try to figure out, like, if you rate me as adventurous and bold and courageous and daring, we don't need all those adjectives that are part of, like, a bravery
Sorry, but my
scale.
problem with these, when I take these tests, when they're like, you know, you like to, like, plan out your day carefully versus you just want to see what happens. Well, I'm like, well, it totally depends on the day and the kind of mood I'm in and the kind of place I'm in. And that's why I have trouble. I like toil over the answers to these black and white questions.
Of course you do. That's why you can't trust your self-ratings.
Right.
So in the best of these studies, you actually get rated by other people who know you.
Much better.
And then there's actually some crazy data on this. So Insu owner colleagues studied job performance. And they looked at what happened when you rated your own personality. And then we used that to predict how, you know, much sales revenue you produce, or, you know, how productive you are in, like, an engineering job. And then we also got your coworkers to rate you. And if you put in your self-ratings first, your coworkers added a lot of variance and helped to explain more of your job performance. If we got your coworkers' ratings first, and then we added your own self-ratings, they added nothing. So either you don't know yourself well, or the stuff you know about yourself that your coworkers don't is just not relevant to your
I would
job.
suspect that two things could be happening with Myers-Briggs, at least, or with any of these tests.
Do tell.
With self-rating. One is that you're answering the questions about who you want to be, the kind of person you want to be, or you're answering about who you think you are, but you're actually not.
All right, so
And
that's self-deception and social desirability.
Yes, and that's another reason I'm skeptical. Now, let me just explain something, though. So Wait But Why readers, which I thought was so interesting, 26% of the country identifies as an N, that intuition versus sensory, right? Someone who takes in their world from their internal...
Abstract categories.
Right, versus what their senses are telling them. So 26% of the country is an N. 74% is an S.
Self-rated.
Yeah, self-rated. Wait, but why self-rated readers were 80% N. That is crazy outlier percentage for the country, which I just thought was really interesting. But then you said something like, but visuals, like stick drawings, are really great for S-types. Explain that. I don't understand that category that well.
Yeah, I just made that up.
Okay.
But what I was thinking was, if you're somebody who tends to love abstractions, which I think is, you know, most of your readers, you're saying, right?
Right.
Then, like, you're really engaged by these posts that you write, where, like, you're talking about the future of artificial intelligence, and you're talking about something that we can't even imagine existing.
Right.
And all of a sudden you do these drawings, and the people who like to engage with things that they can touch and feel and taste and smell are like, oh, now I get that because I saw the cartoon and I saw it come to life. I think it's also why your metaphors work so well. So, like, you use all these different animals to explain things. Yeah, like, I can picture the instant gratification monkey. Right. And I'm like, oh yeah, that guy occasionally enters my brain too, even though I think I'm not usually managed by him.
that makes more sense.
I think that helps you span the range of this category that may or may not exist.
Right. Because I think there's so much people, like, looking at Myers-Briggs, and they, like, literally just totally don't even get what the categories are, and then they start assigning these, you know, these truths to them. Okay, so back to the Big Five. So what are the Big Five?
All right. So what's interesting is you go do this across lots of different countries, and in many of the countries, the same 5 categories keep coming up. So when we reduce, like, the 18,000 adjectives, we see that we can explain, like, 80% of all the answers that people give just by using 5 traits. Which is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And when they come up in lots of different countries with different cultures, you start to think maybe they're fundamental and universal. And then you also see, like, they have a pretty strong biological and genetic basis. So there's something to them. There's introversion, extroversion, right? On a continuum, most people are in the middle, ambiverts. And we talked about that one already. Then there's conscientiousness, which is how industrious, how self-disciplined, how organized are you, versus more spontaneous and carefree. So think like Lisa Simpson versus Homer Simpson, the two ends. There need to be some Wait But Why characters on that. Third trait is agreeableness, On the agreeable side, you tend to be polite and friendly and cooperative.
Sorry, back to conscientiousness.
No,
Is rational decision maker if he's in charge, are
Yeah.
you conscientious,
Yeah.
and if he has no control over the monkey, are you the other kind? Is that
So I think that there are actually multiple traits that get put together here.
Yeah.
But the rational decision maker, that's usually somebody conscientious plus another trait that we're going to talk about.
Okay. So next.
So agreeableness is basically about wanting to please other people. Disagreeable people tend to be more critical, skeptical, challenging, more comfortable with conflicts. And then we've got emotional